So before we move further, we need to know something about databases, why we need them, and what we will learn right now about databases. We'll just go briefly through the types of databases, and I will stop when we will be ready to know which database we will use in our course, in that course, and in our application. It's widely used. But first of all, we need to have a wide overview of databases at all. And what is databases? As we know, each application needs a way to store, retrieve, or manipulate data, and they play a crucial role in this aspect. And in the Node.js, there are various databases options available. Then you have to choose the right one because it can impact the performance, scalability of the application that you will be building. First options that we have is SQL, which means Structured Query Language, also known as relational databases. They are stored, as you can see, in some kind of structured tables with rows and columns. Each row contains a unique identifier called a primary key. In our case, it's ID. Of course, as you can see, you can just make some kind of assumptions that it looks like the Excel tables. But you've got columns, some kind of header, rows where you've got data, and also you've got table name, which is also, we can compare it to sheet name of SQL. And what type of SQL we've got? First of all is MySQL, which is an open source relational database, and it's widely used in the industry. The next one is SQLite, which is a C library, and it provides lightweight disk-based database, so it's like the lightest version of SQL that is available. The next one is PostgreSQL, which is known for its accessibility and SQL compliance, and also you will be able to see a lot of things that Node uses PostgreSQL as well. And the last one is Microsoft SQL Service, as is a relational database management system, and it's of course developed by Microsoft. The second option that we've got is NoSQL, which means not only structured query language, and are they known as non-relational databases. And they can store and retrieve data in a ways other than tabular relationships. They can be categorized, for example, into documents, as we can see, key value, columnar, graph database. There are a lot of options, but we'll stick with the document one, where we've got the document, field, and key value pair, because we'll be using in our course NoSQL databases, which will be one of that is that example. And of course, we'll be using MongoDB, and it's a document-oriented database where data is stored in JSON-like format. So if you know something about JSON, you work with JSON files, it will be the most familiar and the best options that we can choose. That's why we'll be using MongoDB. The next one is Redis, which we store a key value store, often used for caching. Cassandra is a columnar store, is built by Google Bigtable, and Neo4j, and is graph database designed for storing interconnected data. But remember, we'll be focusing there in our course in MongoDB. And there are some differences. First, data structures. So as you know, SQL databases have a fixed schema with tables, rows, columns, while NoSQL databases offer some kind of flexible data models, which can be, for example, document-based, as we will be using key value pairs, graphs, and much, much more. The second option, the second difference, is query language. SQL databases use structured query language for defining and manipulating data. But in contrast, we've got NoSQL, which have various query methods, often specific to their type. So to be more specific, in SQL, you will have almost everywhere the same query language that you can select from some table and you will get the same data. But with NoSQL, there will be differences to get the data and, for example, to save something between each of the NoSQL language. The next thing is scalability, and databases with SQL typically scale vertically, which means adding more power to the existing server, while NoSQL databases scale horizontally, meaning that they can handle much more traffic and we can add more server to the database. The next thing is consistency and availability. So SQL prioritizes something like ACID properties, atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. But when NoSQL, databases often follow the CAP and they focus on consistency is for C, availability is for A, and from P is partition tolerance. And the last one, use cases. SQL databases are ideal for situations require complete queries and relational data structures, while NoSQL databases shine in some kind of scenarios that demanding flexibility, scalability, and speed. And that's why we'll be using NoSQL database, which will be MongoDB. And to sum everything up, as we know, databases are very crucial part in backend development, and whenever you develop, they are crucial to manipulate, retrieve your data. And whenever you will choose SQL, NoSQL, of course you can combine them together. The key is to understand the strength and limitations to each of one and then make decision that will be the most suitable for you. And that will be all for that lessons, where we will just move to the next and I will show you something about MongoDB that we'll be using.